You know that feeling, right? It's Tuesday morning and a meeting invite from your boss pops up. No subject, no agenda, just your name. And your stomach just drops. You just know it's going to be one of those conversations. And as you're sitting there, you find yourself just nodding along. Not because you agree with what's being said, but because you're painfully aware of this one simple fact. You glanced at your bank account this morning. Rent is due. You literally cannot afford for this conversation to go badly. So you smile, you agree, and you walk away feeling totally drained.
So you start asking yourself, what's wrong with me? Is this a career problem? Do I just need to be more confident? You might blame yourself, your personality, maybe even the job you chose. But what if that whole diagnosis is just completely off? What if it's not a confidence problem at all, and it's not really about your career path either? It's actually a math problem. And believe it or not, there is a specific number that can solve it. A number that can completely rewrite the entire equation of your life. That number is $3,000. Specifically, $3,000 a month in passive income. Now, I know exactly what you're thinking. $3,000 a month? That's only $36,000 a year. You can't retire on that. And you are absolutely right. This isn't a retirement number. This is a freedom number. It's the key that unlocks real agency over your own life. So, okay, why $3,000? Where does that number come from? Well, let's look at the data. The United Way calculates something called the Alice Household Survival Budget. And it's basically just the bare minimum cost. We're talking housing, food, healthcare, the basics, for a single person to just exist. And for most of the US, that number lands somewhere between $2,300 and $2,800. So if you can get to $3,000 a month coming in automatically, you've officially cleared the survival threshold. You've built yourself a financial floor. And here's where that floor becomes so important. Let's get some context. The Federal Reserve tells us that almost 40% of adults can't even cover a tiny $400 emergency. And the median passive income for people who even have any, it's just $350 a month. So when you realize that, you see that hitting a $3,000 a month floor doesn't just put you in a slightly better spot. No, it puts you in a completely different financial universe than the vast majority of people. To really see the difference this makes, let's imagine two people. We'll call them Alex and Marcus. They've got the same job, they make the same salary, they even live in the same city. If you looked at them from the outside, their lives would seem pretty much identical. But underneath the surface, they are living in two totally different worlds. So here's the snapshot. Alex is doing all the right things, right? Has a good job, has saved up some money, but has zero passive income. Alex's entire lifestyle depends on that paycheck hitting the bank account on time every single month. Marcus, on the other hand, spent the last 8 years or so building different income streams. Now with over $3,000 a month coming in, whether he works or not, his life operates on a completely different set of rules. So the real question is, how does this financial floor actually change things? Well, it starts with the most important piece of hardware you own, your brain. This is absolutely fascinating. A huge study published in the journal Science found that the mental burden of financial stress, it's so heavy that it's the cognitive equivalent of losing 13 IQ points. That's not a metaphor. It's a measurable drop in brain function. When you're constantly worried about money, you literally have less brain power for everything else. It's not that Marcus is smarter than Alex, he just has access to his full brain. And when you get that brain power back, it creates this incredible ripple effect. Your career decisions get bolder. Your physical and mental health improve because that chronic stress just melts away. An emergency becomes an inconvenience, not a full-blown catastrophe. Your relationships get better. And maybe most importantly for your future, your entire approach to investing is transformed. Let's use a real-world stress test, the crazy market crash in March of 2020. For Alex, who had no financial floor, that was terrifying. He got scared, had to sell some investments at the absolute worst time just to cover his bills, and basically watched his future wealth just evaporate. But Marcus? His survival income wasn't touched by the stock market, so he saw the crash for what it was, a massive sale, and he bought more. This is the perfect example of how a financial floor allows you to turn a crisis into a huge opportunity. Okay, this all sounds great in theory, but how in the world do you actually build this thing? Well, the key is to be realistic and to use a hybrid approach. Let's take a look at the actual blueprint Marcus followed. So, Marcus didn't put all his eggs in one basket. Over about 8 years, he built this diversified portfolio. He consistently put money into dividend-paying ETFs. He bought a couple of small rental properties. He also invested in REITs. Those are real estate investment trusts, which gave him a piece of the real estate market without the headache of being a landlord. And really interestingly, he used his professional expertise to create a digital product. And you can see here, no single stream is doing all the heavy lifting. More than a third of his income actually comes from that digital product, something that took a lot of work up front but now runs mostly on its own. The rest is split up between different kinds of investments. It's this mix, this hybrid approach, that makes the whole thing achievable in a real-world timeframe. And you know, the real magic of this financial floor is what it protects. The great Charlie Munger said, "The first rule of compounding, never interrupt it unnecessarily." That's the secret sauce right there. When your car breaks down or you get an unexpected medical bill, the floor handles it. That leaves your core investments alone to keep growing uninterrupted. That's the whole game. Which really brings us to the ultimate point of all this. The goal isn't to hit some magic number so you can immediately quit your job and go live on a beach. The data tells a much more interesting story. The true goal is agency. It's about finally owning your own life. It sounds counterintuitive, but pretty much every major study on basic income, from Stockton, California, all the way to Namibia, shows the exact same thing. When you give people a financial floor, they don't stop working. They start working better. They get better jobs, they start their own businesses. That safety net doesn't make you complacent, it makes you bold. The financial writer Morgan Housel just nailed it with this one. He said, "The greatest return on your money isn't interest, it's not dividends, it's the ability to control your own time. The freedom to make choices based on what you want to do, not what you're forced to do just to survive." There's this fantastic story about the author Joseph Heller. He was at a party with a friend who pointed out that some billionaire hedge fund manager there had made more money in a single day than Heller had made from his masterpiece Catch-22 in its entire history. And Heller's reply was just perfect. He said, "Yes, but I have something he will never have. Enough." That's it. That's the real goal. Getting to enough. So Alex is still sitting in that meeting, just nodding along. And maybe you are too. The question really isn't whether it's possible to build this floor. The math is clear, it is. The real question is this: are you going to start building your own floor? Or are you just going to keep hoping that somebody else decides to raise your ceiling? The floor is the one you actually control.